Welcome to the Comic Sauce Podcast, where we talk comics and comics culture. I am Henry Liu, and today I am joined by Porfirio Rangel. Porfirio, how's it going?
Doing good, Henry. Happy to be here talking with you.
Awesome. I'm also joined by Christian Diadamo. Christian, how goes?
How's it going, Henry? It goes well over here. Also happy to be here.
Excellent. Today is September 16th, 2022. And today we're going to talk about SiliCon 2022. SiliCon is, of course, the big fandom convention in San Jose. And this happened just a few weeks ago. And we all went, and we're going to share our experiences to you all. So yeah, a little bit of background on SiliCon. This is the convention that it was formerly known as Silicon Valley Comic-Con. And it was known as that for 4 years, 2016 through 2019. Then, of course, COVID hit, and there was no convention in 2020, but then it came back as SiliCon last year, and then SiliCon continued on this year, and this year's convention is what we're going to focus on today. So let's talk about it. SiliCon from Adam Savage. So yeah, I think we can kind of approach this the same way we approach movies and shows, and talk a bit about what our expectations were and talk a little bit about what we liked and didn't like. Yeah. So before we set foot into the San Jose Convention Center, what were your expectations? What did you think you were in for this year's SiliCon? You want to start, Porfirio?
Sure. So, based off last year's experiences, this year I guess I didn't have that much ex- expectations to it being like a big, like that big convention center compared to obviously San Diego, but like LA Comic Con or even WonderCon. But I was just looking forward to it because, you guys were going to be there. Like, we had a good vibe of friends going, and, it's right there in the Bay Area in San Jose. So I wasn't so much looking or had that much expectations to what the exhibit floor was going to have and the panels that they were showing, but just being like in that environment with good folks and good vibes. So I think I was really much looking forward to that and just being like, okay, like I could be myself around all you guys, and you guys know what I'm talking about when I mean like, oh, like, did you watch this show, or have you read this comic, or this, do you know about this character? So I think it was just, yeah, looking forward to just having good vibes all around.
Yeah, good call. I do agree. That was a lot of what I was looking forward to, the community feel
Hmm.
to it. Just spending a couple days with you guys and like-minded folks, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So how about you, Christian? What were your expectations?
I definitely had a bit higher expectations this year that I think I did for last year, um, because like I remember leading up to last year's, we were in a very different place in the world then. I think especially with COVID and I think it was around the time I think the Delta variant was spreading throughout the world, and
Yeah.
uh, summer of 2021. So a lot of guests backed out like last minute.
Yep.
Um, and I think we were all masked up. The There was a lot of major fires going on along in California around the same time, so we kind of had to be masked up outside because of the fires and inside because of COVID. Um, but it was really nice to like come together and still do it at the time, and it was like it was a very bright spot of the year, and I did have a lot of fun, regardless, because the vibe is just that good. The vibe is good, the people are great, and it's still just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so going into this year, I had, my outlook on Comic Cons and going back to these events was much brighter. The air was a lot cleaner out in San Jose. The guests were not canceling last minute due to COVID. The crowds were bigger, and so I was going into it. I definitely had some like a bit higher expectations, because I was hoping for like a bit more. Like this was the big return, whereas last year was just well, let's just make it happen because we couldn't get it to happen last year.
Got it.
And
Yeah.
then glad and then you weren't gonna come originally, Christian, but glad you
Yeah,
made it. You made it through.
I know. I'm really glad I made it this year because it was a lot of fun and the vibe, the people, it
Uh-huh.
it really does make these conventions.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay, so just briefly on my expectations, I alluded to it a little bit before, but yeah, the one thing I was looking forward to the most is hanging out with you guys, really. Just going to a convention with you all and just geeking out for a weekend. Yeah. Um, that said, uh, yeah, this year going in felt vastly different from last year because last year it was like the first convention we had gone to in like ages, right? And the pandemic was by no means over. So it was like a comic convention that was happening during a pandemic, which was bizarre and it felt weird. And it was just unique in a lot of ways. Um, it felt good though, like kind of what you're saying, Christian. It was like this special thing. We were all holed up, we were all isolated, and we got to get out of the house and hang out with our people. And it was pretty special. Now, cut to this year. At this point, this happened in August 2022. And just me personally, I had gone hard into convention going for the past like year or so. I had attended New York Comic Con in fall of 2021. I attended WonderCon in Anaheim in spring of 2022. And I attended all 5 days of San Diego Comic Con this past summer. So I had been doing it like big, right? So I knew that this wasn't like that caliber convention. SiliCon wasn't like on that level. Um, I had been there. I had experienced the heights of these huge conventions coming back to the world, and loved them, loved the experiences there. And I knew this was just like a smaller scale thing. In addition to that, you know, all pop culture geeks like us have specific reasons for attending conventions, and there's a huge variety, great diversity, which is great. Why do people go to these conventions? So me personally, it tends to be comic book collecting and panels, right? Like celebrity panels. Those are probably the two things like top of my list. Um, so in the aforementioned large conventions, there's a lot of that, right? With SiliCon, you know, not as much. So definitely, expectations were on the low side in that regard. I will add too that from the comic collecting angle, quick shout out to Berkeley Comic Show. It's a small comic convention that is held fairly regularly in Berkeley, California, and I get like my comic collecting fix pretty regularly there. So yeah, I wasn't expecting to do like a whole lot of comic collecting at SiliCon, nor did I need to because there are many outlets for me, obviously. But yeah, just kind of framing it as well. This wasn't something that was like the top thing I was looking forward to all year, and ultimately, like I've been saying, the thing I was looking forward to most is just hanging out, chilling with you guys.
Mhm.
All right, so let's get into some specifics. What did you enjoy the most about SiliCon this year? Any thoughts, Porfirio? You have any highlights to call
Yeah,
out?
I was looking forward to showing off our my cosplay. Like,
Yeah,
so Saturday I dressed up as Neymar. Um, because of the Black Panther 2 trailer, I became an instant Neymar fan.
yeah,
Um, overnight. And so I really want to really want to work on that costume, but I did more of a version from the King in Black issues than like from the MCU version. And I got mistaken a lot as Aquaman.
yes.
So so maybe I just have to wait until after Black Panther to see if maybe more people get it.
Yeah.
But the second day, me and my partner Christian, yeah, we dressed up as Jesse and James from Team Rocket, from Pokemon, and that was a lot of fun, and that got way more like people got it and stuff. I unfortunately lost one of my gloves. I don't know when, but I lost one of my gloves. But that was a lot of fun getting that costume together. Like actually, like taking the time to like make the R on the shirt and just getting the wig and getting like the Meowth plus toy and just like yeah, having fun and yeah, I think yeah, so that was definitely one thing I loved about um that I was looking forward to was just showing off the cosplaying and seeing what other people's cosplays were.
Yeah, that was definitely a highlight for me, the cosplay. There were a lot of awesome costumes at the convention, and we all did show up in costume. Um, Christian, why don't you tell us a little bit about your outfit?
All right. My my cosplay this year was Ned Flanders from The Simpsons, Homer's
Yes,
neighbor.
yes.
Howdy doodly. And that was a lot of fun to put together and walk around and just like say Simpsons quotes and have people say their favorite Ned Flanders lines back at me and call me neighborino and like, oh wow, you look just like Ned Flanders. Oh man. And like I was talking to someone who was talking about all the intricacies of their costume, and they said it took them like hundreds of hours, and they asked me like, oh, how long did it take you to get yours? And it's like not that long. I put like very little effort at this. I just look like this. But it turned out a little too well. But it came out so well, and I had a lot of fun just like walking around as this character.
So awesome.
I think I don't, because I remember like one year I did like Peter Parker. Not I don't think not for Comic Con, but for like a Halloween event. And I think what's so hard when you're like cosplaying is like when people interact with you and you have to like be in character and interact with them back. Like
Yeah,
I think that's really really hard.
it is pretty hard. Like, because sometimes you just kind of blank. Like they probably
Yeah.
thought they see you and they think of the line, and
Yeah.
like you're like, oh crap, how do I respond? I've seen this like many times.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
How? What do I do? Like, I was the Riddler one year, and someone comes up to me and asks if I had any riddles for him, and I totally blanked at the
Yeah.
at that moment. I was like, I don't know. Like, I couldn't even ask what gets wetter as it dries. Like, because so it is kind of hard. So like a lot of times I just as Ned, it's very easy to just go howdly doodly,
Oh.
hidely ho, and just call people neighborinos.
Nice.
Mhm.
Excellent. So yeah, I dressed up as well. I cosplayed as Shang-Chi, the master of Kung Fu, both days on Saturday and Sunday. And on Sunday, I brought my son also. So Simon dressed as Thor. And yeah, we had a lot of fun dressing up. Yeah, it was cool too because there was another Shang-Chi cosplayer, and we were, kind of geeking out together. And that's what these conventions are all about, right? Like-minded fans, and it's always good. It's always fun to like run into your cosplay doppelganger, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, there's another kind of cool moment on Sunday. Yeah, both myself and Simon were in costume, and oh, you guys know him. There was another Namor at the convention. He was like
Yeah.
the old school comics
Mhm.
Namor.
The
Mhm.
shorts, yeah,
Yeah, he had very little on.
speedo Namor.
Yeah. But yeah, he actually came up to me and he praised me on my costume and my son's costume, and he said like, oh, when he is his son as well, and he said that uh like he got his son into cosplay around the age of of Simon right now, and he said like they've bonded over that. It's something they've bonded over through the years, and
Mhm.
so he's just kind of highlighting how special it can be. So it was, yeah, kind of a nice little like parental moment there,
Mhm.
so yeah, that was nice. It was nice. I'm glad we had that little interaction.
Mhm.
So what else? Yeah, the cosplay was great. We all attended the masquerade, the contest on Saturday night, right? So we got to see a lot of cool costumes.
Yeah, the costume contest, that was cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, a lot of really good costumes there. The
yeah,
winner was the Winchester Mystery House,
yeah.
and someone walked by like the house was it was like the full Winchester Mystery House was like kind of like waist height on them, and like kind of came out in front in the back, like imagine like a really big dress,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it like lit up too and everything. Like there were like LEDs in there.
Yeah,
It was pretty well made.
it was phenomenal. It was actually so intricate that the cosplayer couldn't go onto the stage with it, right? She had to stay like just in front of the stage. It was very complicated. It was complex. Interesting choice for the grand winner though, because it wasn't really like a fandom cosplay, right? It was sort of a local flavor,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, what's something different? Whereas like everyone else was usually from something. Like you
Yeah,
have like
Mhm.
Spartans from Halo, or Godzilla was there, or like there
yeah,
was a really good one who was like the Punisher War Machine.
Oh yeah.
yeah. That was cool.
I forget if that guy won anything, but that was really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But that was the only like non like comic book nerdy fandom type thing.
Yeah, definitely worthy. It was an amazing costume, but yeah, interesting that it wasn't really a fandom cosplay. Okay, what else? What else was good? Any other highlights to call out?
I enjoyed the panels that they had. I mean, this was both a good and bad. I'll get to the plus side, but I enjoyed like the celebrities they had. I was binge watching The Expanse TV show on Amazon Prime to um get into like the panel and hear about the cast, and thank God I did, because I mean that show's amazing. I do
Mm,
highly recommend checking it out, but the panel was just really fun and great. And one of the the actresses, her name is Sh- Shoria. Oh my gosh, Shora. Oh
mhm.
my gosh, I I'm gonna like butcher her name forever, but she's done like she was the voice in like Mass Effect, and she was in the Punisher Netflix show. Um,
Right.
I got to meet her, got to do a celebrity autograph with her. And Ray Park, who was Darth Maul in the Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
So this is my first time getting celebrity autographs since the first SiliCon,
Hmm.
which was back in 2016. So I did two celebrity autographs, and it was just really fun and awesome getting to interact with them. And yeah, yeah, those, I think, yeah, like, I'm trying to think. I feel like we went to another big panel, but those are the only ones I can remember at the moment. The Batwoman panel.
Oh yeah, we all went to that. That was like the first thing we all went to, basically,
Yeah,
right?
I was surprised how
Hmm.
empty that one was. Like there was nobody there, but I remember I was looking forward to it last year, but I don't know why. I'm guessing because of the Delta variant she canceled, but it was cool to finally she actually like make up for it and actually get to see her talk at that
Yeah.
panel this year around. And so that was really awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. I was thinking the exact same thing. Like she canceled pretty late in the game last year, and I felt like her showing up for this year's SiliCon was pretty cool of her to do because she probably felt like, yeah, she may have let some folks down.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's cool stuff. Yeah, I caught some of the Expanse panel too, and that was cool. There's a cool camaraderie with that whole team there. Um, One panel I want to call out was the Christopher Lloyd panel. I know Christian, you and I attended this one, and
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun. It was just like a lot of laughs. Um, Interesting. uh yeah, I kind of grew up watching a lot of Christopher Lloyd's movies, like I think the Back to the Future trilogy most notably. um but I can't remember the last time I watched a Christopher Lloyd movie, right? So he's an older guy, so I was definitely curious about like, oh, is he holding up okay these days? And the way the panel started, man, I was wondering because he seemed very slow and forgetful and just kind of like not altogether there. um so it was a little bit concerning, but then he kind of like got it together. And um he still has a really sharp wit to him, and he was really funny. So he was kind of funny on a number of levels. At first it was sort of a little off-putting funny in that he seemed like this like slightly senile old man. But then I think some of his memories started to kick in, and he had all these great old stories to tell. And yeah, he was, like I said, he still had a real sharp wit to him, and it made for a really uh, a compelling panel discussion for
Did
sure.
Was the moderator the Mohawk girl?
It was, yeah. Yeah.
Yep, it was.
Yeah.
did sh- how was she uh at
She,
that panel?
I
I
thought
thought
she
she
was
was
pretty
pretty
good.
good, and
Yeah.
mhm,
I think
I
we
think
all
with
discussed
Christopher
this a
Lloyd.
little. Oh, real quick, on the Mohawk girl. I think we all discussed a little bit during the convention, but we all felt like she's like getting better. You know, we all had some gripes about our previous years, but I don't know. I think we all are finding she's getting better with her moderating.
Yeah, yeah, I thought she did pretty well. Like, I think
Yeah,
with Christopher Lloyd also, like he's been in so many like iconic roles and movies
yeah.
Mhm.
that like I imagine the questions came really quick and really easy.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's so much to talk about with his filmography,
Yeah,
and there were, like he had so many great like little stories too that she would just kind
yeah,
of like I think build off of. And like he did tell a great story about how he like almost rejected Doc Brown and how he threw
yes.
the script to Back to the Future in the trash. But it was like a friend that like convinced him, like, dude, you really should go back to Hollywood and do this movie
Mm-hmm.
because he wasn't getting a lot of work at the time. And he thought, okay, I'm just going to go to New York and do theater. And that's going to be my life as an actor. I'm going to be a theater actor for the rest of my life. Film hasn't worked out for me, but they gave him the script for Back to the Future, and like a friend had to convince him, and that kind of changed like the course of his entire life.
Oh
You know?
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up too. You know, that was the most interesting story about him. He literally threw the Back to the Future script into the garbage. He took it, tossed it in the garbage, and he was gonna pass on it. And you know, thankfully for himself, for everyone, really, he changed his mind. But yeah, he had a number of really cool stories like that. So made for an awesome panel.
Mhm.
Mhm.
All
Yeah.
right. So yeah, any other highlights you want to call out?
Oh yeah, I have a guest that I was really hyped to see this year. Because he canceled last year. It was Charles Martinet, the voice of Super Mario.
Yeah.
I grew up playing a lot of his games, and like his voice is like so iconic as Mario. Everybody knows him, even if you haven't played any Mario game. You probably know the Wahoo. And so,
Yes.
like, I was really hyped to see him. I brought my like copy of 3D All Stars for the Nintendo Switch and had him sign it, which had Super Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, and Galaxy on there. And it was really cool to watch his panel. Like, he didn't even have a moderator; he just talked, and he was super entertaining and super lively, and like
Mhm.
told stories about how he grew up in San Jose, what San Jose was like in like the 60s and 70s, and like how he kind of broke into acting through he was like a theater actor but like only really got work in corporate videos and like corporate things until he got the voice of Mario, and like did a lot of voice and has pretty much stayed a voice actor since then. And so that was a lot of fun. There was a lot of energy to that panel. Like, of course, I mean, Mario, some dedicated fans like to show up and ask him questions about like different things he worked on, such as like the new Dragon Ball movie or in Skyrim as well. And like, it's fun to see the voice actor do the voice.
Yeah.
It's like, you did the thing. So that was a definite highlight for me.
Did
That's great.
you? I think I went with you when you went to go to his autograph. Did you take a picture of him also, or?
I did, yeah. We took a few pictures on my phone.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
That's
which
great.
the he's never seen The Simpsons. I was all dressed up in Ned Flanders, but like his assistant, the person taking the photo. Oh my God, are you Ned Flanders? uh, so that was a lot of fun.
Hey, so he's never wait. So he's never seen The Simpsons?
Nah, he never watched The Simpsons. I think I think by that time he kind of he said he was like he never really like got into it. I think
That's
he
just
was probably a
so.
little older by that time and
Um,
probably kind of just missed the boat on it a bit.
I guess that just sounds so weird. Just because I feel like because The Simpsons is a lot of like voice work. I would just
Yeah.
think like, he would have watched it or something. But that's just so.
Yeah,
I don't know. I find that so interesting.
or at this point, been a guest on The Simpsons because it seems like
Yeah,
everybody's been a
Yeah.
guest on The Simpsons at this
Yeah.
point.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
So it is kind of surprising there's no Mario.
maybe more interestingly than that, this is something you brought up, Christian. So apparently, not only has he not seen The Simpsons, but he actually hasn't really played any Mario games either, right?
He said he played a little bit, but he said he was never very good at playing video games. And I think because like of the like he grew up in like the 60s and 70s and into the 80s. So I think that like he played it because he was in it, and he said he wasn't that good and just kind of probably played a little bit of it. He did have some very vivid memories about the games and did like I think because he worked with it. And so like when people would ask him about the games, he would respond with like very specific examples. But he said like, I think he's just not really much of a gamer himself,
Hmm.
even though he's so like tied to the industry.
Yeah.
Like, so it is kind of interesting. But maybe because he's around it so much, maybe in his off time, he probably is other things that he likes to do
Yeah.
as well. And he did mention being really, really into theater, so I imagine that's he probably goes to theater, and that's probably like a passion of his as well.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
funny how you just default to like, oh, you must be crazy into games. You must be like the best Super Mario Brothers player of all time, right?
Yeah,
But actually
yeah.
it's
Hmm.
quite
The
different.
opposite.
Quite the opposite,
Hmm.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we can start shifting gears a bit. Anything we want to call out as a low light? Anything you didn't like about SiliCon this year?
You know, like I think I have a few things, but I talked about like how I enjoyed the panels. I enjoyed the celebrity panels, but I felt like outside of the celebrity panels, there wasn't any other like cool panels like I don't know. Wait, was did did you guys go to like a comedy panel or something?
We
I
did
think we ended up
last
skipping
year.
that.
We all went
Okay.
last year, but I don't think any of us
Not this
attended this
year.
year's
Okay.
comedy panel.
But I just felt like there wasn't like any really cool panels to check out. A lot of them were like makers panels, like how to build stuff. And that's how a lot of the exhibit floor was dedicated to. I feel like at least like 15% of the exhibit floor was like dedicated to like the makers verse is what Adam Savage calls it, to like
Yeah.
for like cosplayers to like build like props or um costume designs or anything like that. And I I I think that's cool if you're into that, but um yeah, like I didn't care for it. So that's why I was like, I don't care for this like makers verse um like design.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit. Okay. So we definitely got a taste of this last year. Last year was a much smaller scale convention than years past. And not a huge surprise. We're right in the thick of COVID-19. Um, but then cut to this year, and um, the guest list was leveled up, and there was bigger attendance expected and all these things. Um, and certainly, we've been calling out some great panels we attended. The panels were definitely better than last year. Well, like you've been saying, Porfirio, the celebrity panels were better.
Hmm.
But the non-celebrity panels were very maker focused. And again, like what you mentioned, Porfirio, the exhibit floor was very maker focused. And it felt like SiliCon really is leaning into this maker aspect of fandom, which is great. But it's a pretty small percentage of fandom. It's a niche fandom, really, right? It's like how we look at cosplay as a segment of fandom, and maker the makerverse, whatever you want to call it, is like a a uh, a subset of a subset, basically, right? So yeah, we're talking, a niche aspect of fandom, and I think that's cool. But look, we're all veterans of this convention, and the earlier years of SiliCon, SVCC, were much larger scale, and they did address like kind of a bigger scope of fandom, right? It was more of a situation like, oh, it doesn't matter what you're into, you're gonna find something awesome for you at this con,
Hmm.
right? Not so much now, right? Yeah, now it's a little bit hit or miss. I think we were fortunate. There were some guests we were into, some panels we were into. So we walked away at the end of the day pretty stoked about our experiences. Um, but I don't know, more and more it feels like it's a niche con, and it's getting tougher to really connect with stuff that you're really into. Um, yeah, I'm with you, Porfirio. Look, we both cosplay. We all three of us, we cosplay. Um, but we're not so into it that we're like making our costumes, right? We kind of piece together stuff um, from the internet and whatnot. But we're not busting out the tools, busting out the foam. we're not at that level, right? So I don't know. It feels in a way that the con is sort of becoming less and less for us specifically. I don't know. Any thoughts on that, Christian? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, like I definitely feel what you guys mean. How it feels like it's a little too specifically focused now, and how it was better when it was broader and it felt like it attracted more people. Like the the Makerverse and cosplay was like front and center, like in the middle of the floor were like several tables where you could build props, and they had a lot of different workshops on how to build props, and just about every panel was maker focused, cosplay focused, how to do this with foam, how to do this with your cosplay. Like the schedule was packed with that, and I do think it was like a little too narrow.
Hmm.
And like I liked the idea that I like the tables aspect of it. Um I didn't really participate in any of it, but I like that it was there and that you could make a prop or you could, do a little bit of arts and crafts. Um but I think that they should have like pulled back from that and kind of moved into that just comic bookness, cuz we all cosplayed. We love cosplay and we do it every year. But the fact that, and like I think with us, like um you know, even though we're into cosplay, it felt like it was too cosplay focused. And I think there's kind of a
Yeah.
level of cosplay where if you are working on that level, you're spending hundreds of hours on
Hmm.
it. Um,
Yeah.
you know, on your cosplay. Not everyone has that kind of time. Not everyone has that level, or it's just not really what the costume calls for. Like I was Ned Flanders, and so like there's no real foam or anything really involved with that costume. I'm a sweater and a shirt, and that's it, you know. And so like there was really nothing for my cosplay specifically there that I would like really work with.
Yeah.
And so that I think part was a bit disappointing. Like I kind of hope they kind of pull back a bit and kind of go lean a bit back more towards what they used to do, which is a mix of a little bit of everything, cosplay focused, but we also have comic books, we have your anime, we have video games, you know,
Hmm.
like broaden the field to broaden the crowd, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
going off what you said, Christian, like, for a Comic Con, there weren't any comic vendors. Like,
Yeah, that was disappointing.
Yeah.
like I remember like they were like, because every Comic Con you go to, there's always like comic vendor that's like, oh, like we have trades or single issues like 30-50% off, and so I remember there were like a few comics. I was like, okay, like I'm gonna go to one of those like booths and get this comic, and I was keeping my eye out for that, and I just found like I found like there were a few like vendors that had like single issues, but there
Mm.
was just like nobody, no, not one single vendor that was like selling like graphic novels or anything like that. And I was just very like, I was, yeah, pretty disappointed. Let me just straight up say it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was only one real comic vendor there, and like when I asked about graphic novels, it was like a small box, you
Yeah.
know, or of like any trades, any graphic novel. No, we got like a small box right there because
Hmm.
it's just one vendor, you know. Whereas before there would be like a few,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
one time there'd be a manga vendor, there would be like several graphic novel vendors, several single issue vendors.
Hmm.
Yeah. And just real quick, shout out to that one vendor. They are Chris's Comics in Fremont, and yeah, I spent some time there. Awesome
Hmm.
people, and had a pretty cool selection. Um, but yeah,
They did, yeah.
I agree. It was kind of disappointing that that was really the one vendor. I think some other vendors had some comics, but it was really the only one that was like comics focused. So yeah, kind of not cool.
Like,
Uh, and oh, speaking of the exhibit floor, this was kind of telling too. So, oh yeah, a little compare and contrast. Porfirio, you and I attended WonderCon earlier
Yeah.
this year,
Hmm.
right? And you and I basically spent like Saturday of WonderCon together,
Hmm.
and we were on the exhibit floor there pretty much the whole time, right? And dude, we barely got through like half of it, right? We were there all day, and we didn't even like scratch the surface, really,
Mm-mm.
right?
Yeah, I think I only saw like, because like some of it was like fan art, and I think like the other half was comics, and I didn't even go to like the comics section yet.
Yeah, it was really big, really awesome. um, Cut to SiliCon, and the three of us basically started the convention on Saturday with like cosplay photos, the Batwoman panel, and exploring the exhibit floor, right? And I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say we checked out the whole floor in like 1 hour. Does that
Hmm.
sound about right?
No, I agree. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah. I mean, not like going in detail, spending a lot of time at every booth, but we scanned everything in like an hour. And we were pretty much like, that's it. We're here all weekend, and like this was supposed to be like one of the big things we wanted to spend a lot of time at, right? And it was kind of like, oh man, that's it. Wow.
Yeah, like, compared to previous years, there were just like, what, like four like areas that they totally closed off like in
Yeah.
previous years. Like there was like a whole like artist alley. As you're entering the building, that artist alley, like in the left side of
Hmm.
the exhibit floor, and then all the way to the right, where they used to have like panels. Also, there was like, where you find like the Legion 501 and stuff. And they had like, like the arcade games down below on the first
Yeah.
floor. And
Oh, right. That was all missing.
and this time it was just like one, like just like the main like space of the convention center.
Yeah.
And like we said, like 15% of it was like towards like the makers verse.
Yeah.
And like one thing I love about Comic Cons is the fan art. I am such a sucker for fan art. And even then I felt like it was lackluster. Like there wasn't that much like fan art vendors. And even to go even like to take even like a stronger step, they're just like not vendors that I was like used to seeing every year at SiliCon.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of
Mhm.
a bummer in that regard. And you know what came to mind? This convention is and has always been at the San Jose Convention Center. So it's a big venue.
Hmm.
Like you just mentioned, Porfirio, a lot of it was unused, right? A lot of what they used before was just empty. And so it's almost a bit of a ruse, right? Because they have this huge space. And guess what, folks? The prices were such that they were sort of advertising a big scale convention like years past. Um, but yeah, it really wasn't. Just because it was at the San Jose Convention Center, and just because you're paying a pretty big ticket price, um, didn't result in the big convention experience, right? It was, like we've been saying, more of a niche convention. So um, I think that's fine and great, but we were kind of sold like a different story in a way, right? We're made to expect one thing and we're given something else a little bit. So yeah, there's definitely a little disappointment in that respect, I guess you could say.
you,
Mhm.
you know like
Yeah.
like um I do kind of trash on the makers verse, but Simon had fun, it looked like, at the makers verse.
That's true. Yeah. So like Sunday was kind of family day. I just let him do his thing, and um, yeah, the center of the exhibit floor was completely blocked off. All these tables and just all these materials to make stuff on, right? And Simon spent a lot of time there, and he definitely enjoyed himself. Simon also definitely enjoyed himself at the virtual reality gaming booth. Oh my God. He had a blast there, and he was just cracking people up because he was so convinced that what he was seeing through those VR goggles was really happening, that he just got incredibly excited and amped up. And yeah, everyone there, the people working the booth, the people online waiting from the finish there, everyone was just laughing hysterically. So he was putting on a show. He definitely had fun. He had a blast.
Uh-huh. And Christian had his uh soda person there.
Oh yeah. Well, Bill Soda. I'm glad they come through every year. I bring my cup. I always forget it the first day, but remember the second day.
what
Uh,
what year did you get that cup again?
I think it was year two or year three.
Uh
Um, I got it, and you can like bring it each year. Uh, back you just pay like $5 and you get like free refills or as many refills as you want with that like $5 cover. and the root beer's really good. So like you definitely like drink till you're sick of soda.
Nice. So I think I mentioned this for our podcast review of SiliCon last year, but you know, big props to all the vendors and all the guests and all the attendees. Adam Savage himself. I don't want to like diminish his efforts or the efforts of all that showed up. I think it was a great experience for a lot of folks. But look, we are the Comic Sauce Podcast. We are a comics podcast, and for comics people, yeah, there's definitely something lacking with this convention, right? And if for nothing else, just disclaimer: know what you're getting into. I know a lot of conventions, here there's like a fan convention, and you hear this certain, fairly big name guests are going to be there, and instantly you're like, oh yeah, let's go, like Comic-Con, let's do this, right? But not all cons are the same, and there are different focuses and etc. So yeah, just be forewarned. The SiliCon really is big time leaning into the maker thing. So it's not the same convention it was before, and it's not the same convention that a lot of people are aware of, like namely the bigger name conventions that a lot of folks are familiar with, right? So public service announcement, whatever you want to call it. Know what's going down. Another thing I wanted to mention was I was kind of questioning if this convention was going to return at all. So the fact that it existed at all this year was a big plus, and I'm glad we were able to go. I'm glad we all had fun and got to hang out. Maybe now's a good time to talk a little bit about what's next. Do you think there's going to be a SiliCon next year? If so, what to expect, that sort of thing. What do you guys think?
Wait, hang on. Before we move on, I just want to say, like, one thing I did not like about SiliCon was the food. That was disgusting.
Yeah, the
You guys got
teriyaki bowls that look
te-
gross.
oh god, the teriyaki bowls are disgusting. I probably would have just been better off if I had just like walked the few blocks to go get Jack in the Box, you know.
Mhm.
But
The bacon
yeah.
dogs are good. For a little stand outside, the bacon dogs are all right.
There you
Oh my
go.
gosh, yeah, I should have just done that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the convention center food was definitely a gamble. If you went with the teriyaki bowl, you came up on the wrong side. I got the sandwich, which was not bad. So like I said, it was a bit of a gamble, and either way, you were paying pretty much for the convention center food anyway. So yeah, that was not a highlight. I agree, the food in the convention.
hmm
But yeah, what
Um.
about next year? What do you
Uh-huh.
guys think? Are we going? Are we going next year? Is there going to be one? If there is, are we going? What's it going to be? What do you think?
I think there's going to be one next year. It seemed like the turnout was pretty good this year. It seemed like bigger than last year's, and it seems like hopefully I would like to think that there's like kind of a momentum building with SiliCon, and that next year will be bigger. I think that like it's been growing in some ways, but also shrinking in others over that we've kind of noticed, just kind of generally after year two or three. I think we kind of noticed it started getting a little smaller, a little smaller. Whereas this felt kind of bigger in some ways, bigger guests, more people, even if the floor itself was smaller. They're also so hopefully they'll kind of broaden it back up outside of the Makerverse, have the Makerverse still be a part of it, still have the tables, but hopefully just more vendors, more comics, and like more a little more of everything, you know.
Hmm.
Right on.
Yeah, you know, we keep saying how bad SiliCon has been for the past few years, but if they're gonna have another SiliCon next year, I'm down to go. Like, I do you wonder if there is gonna be a SiliCon? Because I feel like the people who do go are like the ones who are just like, like it's the only Bay Area convention for now until San Francisco Fan Expo comes out in November. So
Yeah.
maybe people are just going right now just because it's the only Comic Con. But if they happen next year, I'll probably go. It's just we've gone every year since the first year, and I think it's a fun little tradition. I think like that's why I said at the top of the hour, like that I just enjoy like going with you guys, whether it's gonna be a good or bad experience. I think just the people you go with, it's gonna be good vibes and good energy.
Good call. Yeah. Interestingly, you did mention uh, San Francisco Fan Expo because I had some thoughts there because the Bay Area convention scene has been interesting over the years because for a while the Bay Area did have a big time convention. WonderCon was previously in the Bay Area. Their last year was 2011, I believe. And there was a void. There was something missing. There was not a big time comic convention in the Bay Area for years. And this con, then known as Silicon Valley Comic Con, was kind of a revelation. Started in 2016, and all of a sudden, like, we had a big con that we could all go to, and there were big name guests, and there was something for everyone, and it was awesome. So we made it a tradition. The three of us have gone every year, and Porfirio, Christian, if you guys go, I'll go next year. Next year also. Hell yeah, I'm in. Come in.
Yeah.
It's you just like you're saying, Porfirio. It's become a cool tradition. That said, though, these last couple of years, it's become more of a niche con and kind of not my thing so much. And unlike last year and 2020, there was nothing else, right? But someone was paying attention because the SFN Expo is happening in a couple months, and it does seem to directly address this void, right? I am sure there are people noticing that SiliCon isn't exactly for everyone. It's not for all fans. It's not like how SVCC used to be. So there's a void there. And I think they're gonna lean into that. They're going big. There are huge guests at this thing. And I'm expecting a pretty awesome exhibit floor. So um this might be uh, like I said, addressing that void and maybe becoming what SiliCon used to be, right? So something to keep our eyes on for sure. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where things go. The Bay Area has, yeah, it's kind of been up and down. It has had the big con, but look at what's happened in San Diego and New York. I mean, San Diego Comic-Con and New York Comic-Con are like institutions for lengthy periods of time, right? They don't have like these cons popping up now and then, going away after a few years and coming back and who knows what, right? So it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward. And with that, we can wrap up the episode. This is farewell from Henry, Porfirio, and Christian.